Oh God, what am I doing here? This is beyond obsession. Oh God.
Okay, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. This is a response video. So, Brian from Bookish, lovely man, great channel, someone I consider a friend. He has done a fantastic video, which is why do we read? Why are we reading? What makes us want to read? Why do we love books? It's a really good video, and he came up with 5 E words that he was bouncing off for the video. And I thought it'd be really nice to do a response video that doesn't repeat what he says, but actually answers the question, why do I collect? Now, collecting books is different to reading books. Clearly, I read what I collect. But actually, sometimes I have something, and the pleasure of having it is a consistent thing, regardless of when I get to reading it. And it's a different thing. It's an interesting thing. It's a different thing. It is clearly connected to collecting the things that you want to read, or you love to read, or you're pleased to have. But collecting is different. So I thought it'd be interesting to address that question. Why do I collect? And maybe it resonates with some of you. If it doesn't resonate and you think, why do people collect? Maybe it'll make some sense. And it'll explain this strange, mysterious thing that is filling up your shelves with books. One of the things that I think about as far as answering this question, this question does come up a lot in my head, because I'm thinking, do I need this? If I find something, and do I have to keep, do I want to keep collecting this thing, this, author or whatever? And I often question this, because clearly I've got a finite amount of space in my house, and I live with my wife, and she doesn't collect books. She doesn't particularly read that much. So she thinks that the books in the house are a pain in the ass. So, it's like, do I need to have these books? And I am actually going to try and do another cull soon. But the books that I collect, clearly they're not going to go away. So I thought I'd start by telling you what I do collect. So I wrote down 9 authors that I am consistently buying everything I can find by them. And some of them are authors that have been around a long time, and they're, it's quite exciting if I find something rare. And there's a couple of newer authors that I just buy everything I can when I can afford it, and they're just authors that I will eventually have everything they've done, and they're not particularly rare because they're still around. So I'll quickly run through them, and I'll try and I've got a few books around that I can sort of comment on as well. And then once I've done that, I'll tell you the sort of like thematic things I collect as well. But I've actually come up with 5 reasons, like his 5 E words. I got 5 words that I think explain collecting, and just 5 reasons why it's a lovely thing. Okay, so Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison is one of them, probably the one I've collected for the longest amount of time. And I'll just show you a few really interesting, rare things that I've got. And I've got 2 copies of Pain God, but this was one, this is an older imprint. It's a pyramid book, which I can't remember who the main people are that pyramid belongs to, but it's a really nice, unusual vintage one that I got. And this was a real lovely thing when I got the Juvies, which is a really old one about, the first things he wrote were like kind of gang related things. And it's really nice to have this. There's a couple of other ones I need from that period, but that was a really nice find. I basically managed to find it in pretty good condition, relatively cheap, because his old stuff's so dear. And then there's a couple of other things that, these Ace copies are the ones I really like. I want to eventually get as many, whatever's been put out in this Ace format. I want to get those. I've got some others as well, but these were 2 that were relatively recent purchases last year. I think they were that were quite expensive. So Love Ain't Nothing But Sex Misspelled, and Gentleman Junkie as well. So those 2 on this Ace imprint. They're examples of me trying to get the Ace imprint ones. Yeah, Harlan Ellison's a good example of that. Ray Bradbury, talk about him a lot. Arguably my favourite author. I'll just show you a few things I've got on that side, because I've got everything I can find by him. There's literally like 2 books I think I haven't got. But this is a play based around his stories, which is really pretty cool. So he adapted something that he did into a play, which is really cool. The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit. So that's a really nice thing to have. And I found this fantastic nick as well. So that was really good to see. And book of poetry as well. So Ray Bradbury wrote poetry. And this is, there are other books of poetry that I could potentially get. But this was one book of poetry. You look at this list, it's quite nice, to kind of gratifying to know that the only thing I'm missing from that lot is R is for Rocket, which I used to have, weirdly. But yeah, so Ray Bradbury poetry book. This was a real find. This was the first thing I read on my Ray Bradbury deep dive, which is the crime stories. Didn't even know that existed until I decided to have everything. So that was pretty cool. I love that cover. So that was a really nice addition to my collection. And this was really cool because from The Dust Returned, I've got another copy of that as well. But this copy has illustrations by Charles Addams. Charles Addams is a huge part of my collection, which I'm sure you're probably fed up of hearing about. And I will get to Charles Addams in a minute. So that's Ray Bradbury. Ursula K. Le Guin is another one. I won't get them all out, but I've got lots of Ursula K. Le Guin. It's unusual for me to find something I haven't got. Richard Matheson. So I could quickly just throw this about. My favourite copy of I Am Legend, but I've got a number of copies of this. But this is my favourite one. So yeah, and I'll if I can find anything by him I haven't got, I get very, very excited. So Richard Matheson. Stephen King. I've got, I'd have to include him, even though it takes a lot less effort to collect Stephen King stuff because they're everywhere. But I can't remember how many I've got, but I've got a ridiculous amount. I did a couple of videos on it. But this is a recent one. It's an example of how he's still writing good things now in his old age. So it's still worth getting excited when he's released something new. And Claire North. So I've talked about Claire North before, done a video on her before, and I do reference her books a lot. I'll buy anything I can find by her. I'm still a little bit behind, actually. So as I said, with these newer authors, I know that they're easy to get, so I don't necessarily get everything I can straight away, but I know she's someone I will have everything by. I haven't got her Greek ones yet. So that's Claire North. Well, actually, I might have one of them, but yeah. And Adrian Tchaikovsky as well. It's another one, friend of Claire North's, actually. They play D&D together, which I think is awesome. But I try and get everything I can from Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I'm going to be on a big drive to read lots of Adrian Tchaikovsky in the next few months. So he's another one of the recent ones. Robert Sheckley as well. So I've talked about Robert Sheckley before. I've done a video of my Robert Sheckley collection. Again, it's very rare to find something I haven't got, but when I do, I get very excited. And the last one I was going to mention is Charles Bukowski, and I've got a big collection of Charles Bukowski, which I haven't actually done yet. I haven't done a video of what I've got because I've already filmed a video ages ago, actually, but it's scheduled for later, which is me tackling a part of my past that references my relationship with Charles Bukowski. That it's a very serious video that I wanted to do before I talked about his books. So yeah, it's a very serious video. It's got a trigger warning on it, blah blah blah. So that video is going to come out at some point in the next couple of months, and then I'll start talking about my collection and start talking about Charles Bukowski in more detail. But I had to get that video out there because I don't even know if I feel the same way about him as I used to. But that video is important because I talk about why he made such a big impact on me when I was a teenager. So yeah, those are 9 authors I collect. But I also collect books about the Marx Brothers. I used to collect books about animated films, but I don't do as much of that. But I won't want to get rid of the ones I've got. But I don't do as much as that. I don't know if there's that many around, but yeah, I've got, you know, lots of books on Warner Brothers and you know, Looney Tunes and Disney and all that sort of stuff. I've got a huge collection of the cartoonist stuff, which I've gone through before in other videos, and that's probably my most precious area of my collection, really, my cartoonist collection, which I'll reference in a minute. And I've got I don't know how many books, 3 shelves of double-breasted and more vintage science fiction books. So I do look for those as well, but that's a little bit more general. And the hard case crime books. So I've got a load of them here. These are some of the recent ones I've bought, like Deadly Beloved, Double Down, Max Allen Collins, Donald Westlake's Forever and a Death, and Lawrence Block's A Girl with Deep Blue Eyes. I've actually got 24 in this series, 24 books in this series, and I think they're pretty reliable. There's one I didn't really like that much, but they're always an interesting read, and they're always quite a nice thing to collect because they look really cool, and the covers are brilliant. So that's the other thing I collect as far as general ones. So there's quite a lot, to be fair. So even if I strip down my collection to the bare minimum, it will still be, you know, quite a lot of that kind of thing. But plus there's most of this stuff on behind me is stuff I need to read. There's a few other books that I've referenced recently in other videos, but there's a lot there that I haven't read. So there is that as well. So I want to reference this cartoonist thing for a minute, because I've got 3 examples here of fantastic moments recently where I've been able to add to my collection, and I've got so excited, so pleased, walked home with a big grin on my face. And this is a thing. This is not me grinning because of reading something or reading these books, but because I found them, you know, and that's a part of it. It's a big part of it. So this is a book by Gain Wilson called It's Nothing Sacred, and I already have this, but this is a bit knackered. So this was the first book I had by Gain Wilson. Look, the inside's gone. So I would never get rid of this, and I've always tried to keep it as best condition as I could. But even when I had it, it was falling apart when I first had it. But I had this when I was a teenager, and I fell in love with Gain Wilson's style, and now I've got a pretty much perfect copy of it. So that is amazing. So this is a very old book, but I've got a great copy of it. So that was an amazing find. I was so pleased. Equally, I've only got 3 more books to get by Charles Adams out of the 11 books that he released when he was alive. So there was 11 collections brought out when he was alive. There's been other things released since he died, which I've also got as well. But this is called My Crowd, and this has got some great cartoons in it. Anything by Charles Adams I'll get, but this was one of the ones that he published himself, and there's only 3 more I need to get. So that's exciting for me. So I found this on eBay for a tenner, which is very, very, very cheap for Charles Adams. This stuff's very difficult to get. And obviously you've got these wonderful 1-panel cartoons. So yeah, not perfect condition, but okay condition. The condition that I'm happy with. And then this is a really interesting find. So Mordillo is an Italian cartoonist that draws people like this. Don't know if you recognize that style. I first discovered him because I used to frequently go to HMV when I was a teenager, and they used to have a rack of posters you could buy, and I remember seeing there, but actually, you know, quite a few times after that as well, in the poster possibilities, there was a Mordillo cartoon of people playing football on this really steep but tiny island. If you imagine it, all the players were at the top and the ball had fallen off and they were just sort of looking at the edge. It was just a really bizarre, surreal and silly cartoon, but I loved it. Partly because I love the way he draws people. And just to clarify how great it was finding this, I have found 4 books by him in my life. I've seen 4 books by him and I have them. As soon as I saw it, I've bought it. And I've been able to be in a position all 4 times I've seen his stuff that I could just get it. So this is a Mordello Golf. So this is him doing golf related jokes in their cartoons. So and this looks like a really big one, like that football one. So the joy and the excitement of finding something to add to your collection is a big thing. It's a big thing. So I'll go through my 5 words. So the first one is an obvious one. The entertainment of doing it. So, what goes on beyond when you get home and you can actually look at these things you've collected, that's clearly a thing. So the entertainment in itself is an obvious thing to state, but it's worth stating. So that's the first thing. Second one, the hunt, the discovery, you're out on a day out and you go, oh, can I just nip into this bookshop? And you go into a bookshop or a charity shop and you'll be like, oh yeah, and you're sort of enjoying the browse, but then you find something. The hunt is an interesting in itself. So you might go somewhere and you almost find something, or you see something and you've already got it, but you're thinking, oh, there might be something else by that author, or those kind of things. The hunt itself is a great thing, and finding something is an amazing thing. The third thing, the third reason why collecting is great, the overview, kind of like the deep dive in something. So, like I said when I talked about the Ray Bradbury stuff, me deciding to have everything meant I discovered this. And that was my first part of the journey for discovering all the crime stuff he'd written. And I didn't realise that he'd written so much crime stuff. I mean, actually, this book is a more comprehensive book of his crime stuff. And actually, one of the hard case crime books. So actually, I've got 25. What am I talking about? I've got 25 of those books. But I'll keep this with the Ray Bradbury stuff. But the point is, I didn't know about that stuff until I did that deep dive. So you get a better overview of the authors that you're collecting as well. And equally, my interest in Charles Adams meant I recently read the biography of Charles Adams, and that was really interesting, really enlightening, and it just adds that extra juice to your interest in someone. So the overview is a big thing as well. The surprises. So I've already mentioned some of these surprises. The wonderful. I found the Mordillo book in a bunch of Punch books and a bunch of Giles books and Perisher's books, those kind of things. And then seeing a Mordillo book, it's like, this guy clearly doesn't realise how unusual it is to find a Mordillo book, because this was I think it was £3. £3 is cheap for something so rare. So that was pretty good. And just on that note of the cartoonist thing, another thing I found on the same visit, actually, this is an issue, a book of Punch, bad condition. Clearly, I'll accept that. There's no cover. It's from 1867. 1867? That's amazing. If you wanted to really know what cartoons were like in 1867, what satire was like in 1867, this is an actual Punch from that long ago. That's amazing, isn't it? So that's a surprise. So the surprises is a big thing. So the entertainment, the hunt, the overview, the surprises, and the last one, which I've talked about before, and this is where I differentiate collecting books to ebooks, the physicality of it. The physicality. This book feels lovely. The difference between hardback and softback books, this is hopefully going to stay in good condition all the time I have it, and the physicality of reading it is brilliant. But I love these little ones. The little corgi ones, I love these. Just holding it is awesome, and the pleasure of reading it comes from the physicality of it as well. If I'm going to get something illustrated by Charles Adams, it's nice to have that physical version. These little illustrations he's done. This has actually got deckled edges as well, which is kind of interesting. So it adds another tactile element to it. So the physicality of it is part of it as well. So there we are. That's my view about why I think collecting is different to reading, but it's an awesome thing. And it's not the same as hoarding, because I just keep books for the sake of it. And I do unhauls and I do get rid of stuff. And I am a hoarder in other ways, by the way, so I might do a video on hoarding one day, but that's different. That's just stuff from school and things that I could easily get rid of. But the books I have, it's a collecting thing. Collecting is different. But there's a lot of joy in collecting. So hopefully I've described that in a way that's articulated enough so it kind of makes sense. Please comment below if you can relate to any of that, because I think out of all of them, I think the hunt and the overview is the big thing. You know, really getting to know someone that you collect in a big way, and the hunt of actually looking out for this stuff and finding these great surprises. Okay, thanks for watching. Stay curious.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to be you. Sit up on your high chair on the outside looking